How is it that the miniature gaming landscape is so diverse and so creative, and yet only one company is really dominating market share? We're talking about visibility and asking the question, what keeps miniature games small? Hit that intro. Welcome to Corner Caves. You're in the hobby corner. I'm your host, your optimized search term, your best friend, Deck. Today we ask the question, what keeps miniature games small? And we're starting with a comment. Zombie Monkey 7 writes, glad to hear about Infinity and Malifaux getting more coverage as I've slowly started getting into both. And man, is there a massive amount of missing social media content for these games, especially compared to GW stuff. For example, I recently painted Malifaux's Dirty Work box and posted it to Reddit and Twitter. I checked Google Images for other paint jobs and to see what anyone else did with these models. I am not joking, my okay-ish paint job is top 7 for the search results, and the only other painted models I could find were Malifaux's official models. Absolutely blows my mind that either A, people are not actually posting their work, making small games seem even smaller, or B, which is more of a meme, I am literally the only person on the planet who has built and painted. Zombie Monkey 7's problem is super relatable. We're going to explore this topic over the course of 2 videos. This first video is going to be about models. The first thing in regards to models, when you transition from an army game to a skirmish game, you have the impression that from a hobby perspective, everything shrinks down, right? It gets easier. It's cheaper. You don't have to buy as many models. You're playing this game where an army is like 50 models, 70 models to field an army. If you're playing Tyranids, you're playing the whole carpet. And when you go down to the skirmish game, you're supposed to be able to play 10 models, 15 models, 20 is a swarm. So the numbers just all get smaller. It should be cheaper. And from like a money perspective, that's definitely true. You're investing a lot less money. But when it comes to the hobby, my argument is it actually doesn't strictly scale down that easily. So let's talk in specifics. I have my Blood Angels, my Lamenter's army. Let's talk about example army and count the unique model types. In a 40k army, let's say my Lamenters, I'm running a captain, a lieutenant, some intercessors, sanguinary guard, death company. Let's say we're running like a tank or something, and we're like eradicators. Boom. 7 unique model types to field in an army. Now, let's go down to Malifaux. So I play in a Rasputina crew, like 50 soulstones. I can fit around 9 models, but let's count unique types. Rasputina, Wendigo, those are obviously both already in. Snowstorm, probably in. Silent One, December Acolyte, Ice Gammon. I'm already at 6. My point here is that the unique model types are almost the same when you go down to a skirmish game, and on top of that, every pose is unique. In a skirmish game, no pose is repeated unless you decide to buy the same model twice. And that's not everybody. My point here is that new hobbyists count everything. The GW method explicitly works very well for on-ramping new people. So if you're painting a squad of 10 guys, a lot of them have a similar pose, all have a bolter, they're all either just squatting or running and very little variation. They're all thick enough, and you paint an assembly line. You paint blue first, you do your wash, then you paint your gold, then you do your wash, then you do your highlight. You've assembly line the whole thing, 3, 4 colors. That all becomes like pretty easy. And the sense of accomplishment is arguably disproportionately large to like what you've achieved. Now let's go down to like my Rasputina crew. Some of these models have 3 or 4 colors. Some of these other models have 3 or 4 different colors. And your sense of accomplishment from having painted your whole crew is maybe not the same as painting your whole army for what I would say is not that much smaller of an effort level. So I hope what I've demonstrated here is that one problem that skirmish games have is that they're actually not that low barrier to entry from a hobby standpoint. When you compare that to 40k, people love to post their Space Marine. 40k has its poster boy Space Marine. People like to post that Space Marine painted, and they can compare themselves immediately with an entire community that's all painted the exact same model. A lot of these posts can just be proud of the fact that they got paint on a model. I don't necessarily always see that on the skirmish side. I think the skirmish games can tend to feel a little bit more intense, and because I think the models are way cooler. If you're watching this channel, you probably agree with me. They're way cooler. There is also kind of like the emotional attachment of like, I want to do a good job because this thing is so cool. So I think the stakes actually like seem a little bit higher when you get to the skirmish game. So point number 1, why miniature games stay small from a model perspective. Actually, the barrier is not that much lower to get in from a hobby perspective. This leads into my next point. We're talking about Space Marines. is Malifaux and Infinity, from what I have seen, don't really have a good entry point model, don't have like a poster boy model for the whole game. When I think about Malifaux, the models I think of, Lord Chompy Bits, the Dreamer, Victorias, a lot of really cool stuff, but those are named characters. You only need one ever. They don't represent their whole army. They look unique. You're not learning how to paint a Lord Chompy Bits and then all of a sudden you can paint your entire army. It's not like that. Versus in Space Marines, you can paint like one Space Marine and confidently be like, I can paint everything in my army now except for the tank. The named character component and the not necessarily transferable skills between models, I think that's definitely a consideration when it comes to what's affecting like the poster boy for like a game. I think they've tried, I've seen like Titania on a rulebook. I think one of the rulebooks had Vix on the front. The point is that like, I don't think people really want to all buy the same master as each other. In 40K, everyone likes buying the Space Marines because everyone can be the same, but different. But if I'm playing Malifaux and everyone gets stoked about playing and painting Vix, that just turns into like not the most fun meta ever. And everyone kind of is samey. And I think in miniature games, people like to be unique. Really, when it comes to like a poster boy for your game, there's like, I think two components. One of them is the same but different. And then the next one is color scheme. And I think Infinity is a lot better for talking about color scheme. If I talk about model design, obviously you look at the classic Space Marine, you have your big chonky boy, you have yellow eagle on the front, the whole thing is blue. If you have those two items on a big chonky boy, you immediately recognize that as Space Marine. And this is across the board, in my opinion, for most GW line troops. Tyranids, I think the Hormigons are the line troops. If you just draw any spiky thing and it's purple on one half and the other half is like an off-white with like a red eyeball or something, that's like enough. You know that that's a Tyranid, right? From a design language perspective, the color blocking, extremely iconic on the Games Workshop side. If you take Malifaux, everyone is kind of wearing their own stuff. The color blocking isn't always that strong because it's a little bit more of a grounded setting. Now the masters are really like iconic and the creatures are too, but if you take like, for example, like guild marshals or guild riflemen or something, they're like pretty nondescript. They wear the long coats. The difference between the exorcists and the guild marshals, I don't know, the exorcists and the ones that are also exorcists but more, there's a lot of units that are like kind of samey, but they're also not super recognizable. And I think that happens in Infinity as well. If I take like the Pano Orc Troop and like the Yujing Tiger Soldier, both medium infantry, if I take the colors away, the design is like way too similar for anyone to notice unless they're like this close to their face. So from like a silhouette and like a model design standpoint, that's not really going for them. And then when you add in the fact that in Infinity lore, a lot of the factions or sectorials are like trading, buying and selling armor from each other, buying and selling like mechs from each other, and then you encourage people to proxy, now all of a sudden you're in a situation where a lot of the stuff actually does look the same by design and lore. And the things that are newer, I will say, look a lot different. If we're using medium infantry still, the Yadu definitely, I think the Yadu look really iconic, but a lot of the stuff in between, like the older stuff and the current stuff, a lot of it looks really, really samey. So other new stuff that works well is the O12 stuff. I think the O12 stuff looks really good. And when you look at all the tags, I think the tags all look really unique and like good centerpiece for each army. But I do think that new hobbyists or people entering new games don't always go for like the big models. I think a lot of miniature modelers and miniature hobbyists can be intimidated by these bigger models to start. So I don't think they make like a great poster boy effect like we've been talking about. I think the line troops make the best type of poster boy because people have to play them, so they do get emotionally attached. I think for me, if the Flash Pulse bots and Aleph were the poster boy,
oh my goodness,
I did end up buying, like you saw how many I have. Like I bought them all. I bought as many as I could fit into a list. If that was like the poster boy, that would be cool. Because then like if everyone was painting that and I was painting mine, I could compare. That would be really fun. What if we all decided that the Infinity thing we were all going to paint is Orc Troops? We all would just get a box of Orc Troops and we would all just paint them and post them online. Now all of a sudden, like everyone sees Orc Troops online and people want to start playing that faction. People start buying that. And because those are like kind of agnostic medium infantry, you can kind of like swing them for like whatever faction, since, in the Infinity community, it's okay to proxy pretty easily. Maybe that's how we do it. We all pick what model we want to do and then we all just do it. And then now there is a poster boy for the game. I think that's a great option. We have that power to do that. So that leads me into what I think the solution could be. I don't want to be the type of channel that just complains or calls attention to a problem and doesn't offer any solutions. I think we as a community have a very great solution that we can all execute now. And that is, we have the power. We decide what models we're going to paint and we can decide together to paint the same one. We talk to each other on Discord, join the Discord. We talk to each other on Facebook, join the Facebook, the Reddit. I don't have a Reddit. We have these YouTube videos that we make. We talk to each other. We can all organize and decide that in Infinity, we're going to paint Orc Troops. Maybe we all just paint Orc Troops, and then people that come into the hobby, they see them of all levels because all of us us did it, then that becomes like a cool entryway for people to come in. It's kind of cool when you see like a thumbnail from Duncan Rhodes that says like my first Space Marine, and it's just this ugly, super ugly Space Marine, but you're like counting the gains, you know, and you see where he's at now teaching all of us to paint. Infinity isn't that old of a game. Malifaux isn't that old of a game. There definitely are people that may have started in that game, and it would be cool to say like, look, this is my first Rasputina, this is my first Orc Troop, you know, so we can kind of build that lore ourselves with our collective excitement. That's something within our power to do. So I just thought that was a pretty sweet solution. That's just some ideas. There's probably more. We'll talk about other reasons why small miniature games stay small in subsequent videos, so stay tuned for that. Please subscribe, smash the bell icon if you want to see more. We're always desperate. Please hit the like, please comment, please, we beg you. We're always desperate. Talk to us on Discord, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Venerate the Emperor by subscribing now! Only in death does subscribing end!